Hello, 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 and welcome to the Blue Oval Podcast. I am Ben Weissel, and joining me, as always, Garrett Zatlin. How's it going, man?
Ben, as if this past weekend of performances and crazy results couldn't have been any more, tiresome, I then had to just outline my entire summer, which included coordinating all of my trips to France. Oh, Garrett, you're going to the Olympic Games in Paris? No, but I am going to Paris. And so for a friend's wedding, he decided that it was a good decision to have his wedding in Paris during the Outdoor National Championships. And so can't wait to balance that. But otherwise, I've already spoken to a few people. We're going to get it handled. And so, I can't wait for that. But thought that was an interesting note.
Sounds like you're going to be getting zero sleep. And the jet lag
Right.
actually might help you out in terms of watching stuff.
That's true.
Hard
Yeah.
to wait. Oh boy, that's brutal. But let's just get into it. This obviously is a huge weekend every year in our sport, and this past weekend did not disappoint in any way. Before we get started, we did get one rating on Apple. We're up to 88 there. No
I
one's
think it might have been two. I think there might have been
maybe
plus
maybe
one.
two.
Plus one. Yeah,
Okay,
so one on Apple and one on Spotify. So thank you. It
there
was
you
great.
go. All right. Well, with all the admin out, with all our quick spiels out of the way, let's get into the results. And there is no better way to start than with another NCAA record-breaking performance from Parker Valby in her first 10,000-meter race. She runs 30:50 to demolish the record, demolish the field. I mean, it's like I guess the only thing I can compare it to is when you're playing like a video game,
I
whether it's
knew
like
exactly where you were going with
2K
this.
or
Yeah.
whatever. You're on like a rookie setting, you're on my player, and you're just putting up 60 points a game and just destroying everybody. That's where we're at with Valby.
Yeah.
Like, she is playing on rookie mode when everyone else is on like hard or difficult or whatever
Right.
it is, world class. She is just on a different planet than everyone else in the NCAA right now.
It's like, I don't know what to say at this point. Like, I thought, okay, it's her first 10K race ever. And more importantly, the women's 10K record set by Lisa Cole in 2010 was 31:18. If you really kind of think about it, that record hasn't really been threatened
No.
at all. Like, no one's really come all that close since it was set. Like, go back down the all-time list. So I thought, okay, is she capable of breaking the record? Yes, I think she is. Would I be surprised if she broke the record? No, I wouldn't be. But I had her at like 31:21 in my predictions. I think, okay, you know what? In a field that's not going to push her, in a field where she'll be all by herself, which frankly, she's actually
She
arguably just
always
as
is.
good. Yeah, always is. In her first ever 10K against a record that has really not been threatened, I thought it wasn't a crazy suggestion to say that she'll be 3 seconds off the record. No, she ran 30:50. She destroyed it. And it wasn't even close, actually. She beat it by 28 seconds. And
Negative split.
I don't, she comes through the 5K in 15:30. And do you remember like that Simpsons meme where it's like the guy chuckling like, haha, I'm in danger?
Yeah.
That was me and my predictions. And so it's the best way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole NCAA right now is we're in danger. Like, there's nothing you can do
No.
to stop her because she's run like this for her whole career, but she's reached a level of fitness where it doesn't matter what type of race you want to run. She's just going to run her race and you can't touch her. Like, she is that much better than everyone else. And yeah, I mean, we're running out of superlatives to throw at her at this point. But I mean, it's just a question of how much she wins at NCAA, how many races she decides to compete at NCAAs, and whether or not she's going to be in Paris with you.
Yeah.
That's
a month later.
Yeah, a month later, exactly. That's really the only questions that you have for Parker Valby at this point.
Do you think she does the 5K, 10K double? at nationals.
She shouldn't, but that doesn't mean I don't think she will.
Correct.
I think she'll just do the 5K. For someone who runs as little as she does, doing an extra 6-mile race when she doesn't really need to seems like a bridge too far for me.
Yeah, I imagine Florida is also going to be like, but hey, we're trying to win a national title.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe she does the 10K, and then they're like, okay, well, if we need you in the 5K, good.
Yeah,
And
run.
I don't know. It's like, oh, she, there's always that honest effort. Like you need a medical waiver. The medical waiver, honest. There's people who always hop out of those, like the 3K at the international meet,
right?
Like the 5K, because they appeal for whatever reason. They always get it, but so that could happen. But I'm not saying that will or will not happen. But yeah, that's it. I don't I will say this is if you polled the general public who knows the sport, how many of them would you say has the Tui Valby discussion? How split do you think that discussion would be?
I think it's like 50-50 at this point.
I
think you can make a compelling argument on either side of that debate. Valby's crushing people like Tui, I don't think ever quite did, but Tui still got, I think, more records still at this point, and more NCAA titles. So it's. And she beat Valby, right? And that's something that like Valby can't really say as many times as Tui can, that when they went head to head, right?
I guess Tui does have. I'm trying to think. Tui, yeah, 5. Tui has 5 titles, right? I guess so because she won. Never mind. I think 6. I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, that's
close enough. But now it's a conversation. But now we're getting to the point where it's a conversation where Valby wins 1 last spring, 1 in the fall, 2 in the winter. I mean, if she wants to, she could win 2.
Yeah,
in the spring. So,
yep, it's right there. All right, let's move on. I did not expect to be talking about a 10K first on Brian Clay weekend, but this is where we're at. The next event, though, is one that we always are talking about at Brian Clay, and that is the 1,500 meters. And let's start on the men's side, where I think maybe the biggest surprise of the weekend was, besides Valby's 30-50, was Colin Sahlman taking home the win, running 3:33, beating a loaded field. And I'm just going to run through some names real quick. We can touch on them later. Nathan Green, 3:34. Fawad Musau, 3:36. Liam Murphy, 3:36. Gary Martin, 3:37. And then a bunch of guys at 3:38. You had Washington teammates of Hauser and Wascom who were in contention but ended up fading late. This was everything we hoped it would be, and yet really not what I think any of us expected it to be. And Sahlman has, I think he's obviously shown flashes. He was good during the indoor season. This is kind of the statement performance. I'm trying to remember when like Nico Young had a similar kind of performance on the track where it was like, all right, I've arrived. I'm not just like potential. I'm fully here. But it feels like Sahlman has kind of followed Nico Young's like progression in a lot of ways of like he wasn't quite as impactful as you would assume or think that he could be in his freshman year, but has just fulfilled all that potential and all that promise in his second year.
Yeah, I think the performances, he's 4th at the NCAA XC championships that were held in March that year for Nico Young.
Yeah.
That's probably the comp, but like 3:33.96, you're barely missing the collegiate record, which is like a recent collegiate record. That's very good. Like, it's just so hard now because now we have to look at him like, well, okay, look, but whether you want to or not, he has to be considered a national title contender at this point.
Sure.
Like, he has to be
That
one of
is a
those men
long,
that's
long list, I think, at this point.
and that's the problem. It's a long, long list. But you can't tell me that a guy running under 334, is not in that mix to win a title.
No.
Though I think the more important takeaway was how he ran it, which was put himself near the front, didn't put himself at the front, but near the front, and then basically grinded away with Nathan Green on that last lap, got around a few guys, Musau in particular, and then kicked hard with 200 meters to go. To be able to run that fast in an all-out aggressive race and then still have that kind of finishing speed where they comfortably beat the rest of the field, I think that's a substantial sign in terms of his ability to initiate certain gears, make moves, and this is also the flexibility that you get on the outdoor track.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've mentioned that a couple times. Just the ability to move is so much easier on the outdoor oval rather during the indoor season, and he took full advantage of that. I think we like to say, like, hey, this is a different kind of race than what we'll see at NCAAs, where it was fast from the gun, it was paced. Like, you can't expect, obviously, nationals to be like this. But what you kind of finish your last point about the way he was able to kick, I mean, that's what you got to be able to do at the end of an NCAA race. And the fact that he was able to kick that well after putting that much in his legs for the first like 1,300 meters, I mean, you can only imagine what he's going to be able to do in a slower kind of race. And obviously the same could be said about Nathan Green. And obviously both these guys have flashed really good 800-meter chops. So it wouldn't be shocking to see them be able to run like a sub 150 last 800 if they needed to at NCAAs. Like, they could do something that crazy. It's just, and so really there's like zero question marks for me about Sahlman. Like, I guess you worry about him tactically or the experience, but like, he looks so complete as a runner at this point.
Great word, complete. I'm not going to say I totally disagree with you on they could run 149 as a split, but that race would have to be such a jog fest.
Oh, it'd have to be very slow.
That it would have to be like, you'd have to be borderline walking. So agree, but also don't expect that to be the necessary scenario. I think your wording is correct. He's a complete runner. I did think the indoor national meet showed us there's still a little bit of a learning curve in terms of like initial positioning, but I also think he showed that he learned that this past weekend. So great job by him. Nathan Green at 334. I think, like, we obviously knew he could do this, but a tough last month of racing, rebounds in a big way. He has to be thrilled. We should all be thrilled if you're Washington. Fawad Masadi, let's talk about him. He got into the entries, and I'm thinking, what have you done to get into the top section over the past, since the winter? Like, he was great in the fall, and obviously he was elite throughout last winter and last spring, but he was absent for the entirety of the indoor track season, except for one 3K race at the Big 12 Championships where he ran over 8 minutes for 3K and was 14th place. So I had no idea what to expect from him in this race, and yet he comes out and runs 336. How should we gauge and evaluate this performance?
I think it shows that he's back at maybe not his best, but pretty darn close. And I think we still have maybe some of the same question marks about Masadi when it comes to the 1,500 meters of, does he have that change of pace and just top end speed to be able to take home a title, especially when you're racing against guys like Green and Sahlman, who are, I think, going to be able to kick better than he can. But I mean, he's as versatile of a runner as you'll find across the country. The 3K obviously is where he won his title, and I think that's probably always going to be his best event. But I mean, you give him a couple more months, I think he'll probably be in 334 shape. Whether or not that translates into him being able to hang with Nathan Green or Sahlman in a last 200 meters, I don't really think so. But I think he's positioned himself where he should be seen as like an All-American favorite and possibly title contender.
I was going to say, if we're 2 months from now,
Yeah.
Or are you projecting him to be a national title? Do you project that he will be a national title contender come June?
So what are we considering as a contender? Is like
Someone who you believe could
win
the national title in 1500 meters.
I just don't think he can. Like I don't know if it was last year's performance that's kind of scarring me. I just don't think he because like the only way I think he could win is if it was a really fast race, and in this scenario where there's a really fast race, he got beat by two guys who also have better kicks than him. I think he's like in the All-American range rather than the title contender category.
You say like they have better kicks than him, but Musau in his prime, I think, can respond to pretty much any move. So that's I don't know.
Well, I don't know about that. Like I mean, the 1500 meter like final last year, I
that's
think
true. That
in mile kind of like he was good, and he was really good in the 3K. I feel like last indoor season, and good in the mile, but he never really went up against like the best of the best milers during the indoor season last year when he was in peak fitness then.
Yeah. Okay. I don't totally disagree. Yeah, I guess I think I just recall his 3K prowess.
And he's got a great kick for a 3K runner. I mean that I agree with.
Yeah. Okay. By the way, fun fact: Fawad Musau has a PR of 741.63. I think we last year viewed him as like one of the most impressive 3K runners in recent memory. But do you want to know a fun fact? 741 what 0.6? That would have put you at NCAA number 12 this past winter. So, fun fact. All right. A few others. Liam Murphy, Villanova, 336, about right. Gary Martin wins the second section in 337. He's an interesting name.
Yeah.
I really like him. And then a handful of guys, 338. I don't think we're worried about Luke Hauser. He was just ambitious. It didn't work out. Joe Wascom, maybe we need to maybe be a little bit more patient about what he could do, but the last month has not been great for him. Is there anyone here like
I'm not Gary that Martin? Worried about Wascom? Like I think I guess I'm worried in the sense I don't think he's going to be like a title favorite or title contender, but I still think he's just going to show up. He'll make it to the finals and he'll probably be an All-American. Like I think that's.
He was an 8th place All-American in the mile. He just ran 8:54 in the steeple at the end of March, and now he's run 3:43 in that 1500 meter section.
Yeah, it's not great, but I think his experience and the way that his smarts in terms of running those prelims is just going to get him through. And if you can get through prelims, I think you're going to be okay. So what is your over? So if I put the over under at, let's say 4.5 for total men who are title contenders, where are you going?
Hauser, Sahlman, Green. Isaac Baston needs to show me a little bit more over the next month or two before I can put him back in there. I'm not saying he can't, and same thing with Musau. I'm not saying he can't, but I need to see a little bit more. I'll go under, because even if I can find another one, I still think it's 3 or 4.
I think that's kind of where I'm at, where it's like and that's kind of why I put at 4.5. I feel like if you figure out,
Adam Spencer would be my
Adam Spencer, right? Yeah. If you put like Musau, then I feel like you could put like Murphy in there, and then the list starts getting like really long. So yeah. I think I agree. I think it's those 4 guys, and then there is a little bit of a gap at this point. But I mean, there's just the quality in the 1500 meters is just at a different level. I mean, I was surprised to see Rop a little further back. This is kind of the race that I would think he would thrive in. Tefra, I thought this was a good performance for him, kind of continuing to do what he did at the end of the indoor season. But there's just so many guys that could end up being All-Americans. It's going to be just a brutal just to get to nationals. I think like those regional races are going to be hotly contested.
Staying in the 1500 on the men's side, but going elsewhere, Duke Invite, Ethan Strand, 335, and Parker Wolfe, 336. They dominate the Duke Invite. Ethan Strand, if USTF CCCA's website wants to be cooperative here, he now sits, I think, at NCAA number 10 all time, while Solomon's NCAA number 2, Green is NCAA number 4 all time. Did we learn anything?
No.
Yeah.
I think maybe Strand's at a little higher level of fitness than maybe we guessed.
Great.
But I think that's about it.
So he's ran 335.6. We don't think he's a national title contender?
No. I love Strand, but it just seems like he hasn't put it together at a national meet yet in a big way.
Well, he was just fourth. I mean,
that's true. That's true.
I mean, I'll say this. I think he's a year away. Like, I think he can win a national title. I just think he's a year away.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
All right. You go ahead. I'll let you take that next one.
Okay. Let's go to the women's 1500 meters, and there was a lot going on here. Melissa Riggins and Chloe Foerster were the top collegiates in 4:07. Were you surprised that we didn't see anything faster from any of the collegiates this weekend on the women's side?
Yeah.
I think did we say like 4:05 or 4:06 was kind of what we were expecting?
4:05, 4:06 on the pod. I guessed even faster. Like, I started looking through the list. I go, oh my gosh, this is a crazy good field. Like, this is going to be perfect. Bila Chipkuri, 4:03, I think I said. 4:04. Like, I think it's going to be historically fast. No, not even remotely close, actually. Like, no one hit their times. And it was Claudia Kazmierska who came out on the top section. But in the second invite heat, it was Melissa Riggins and Chloe Foerster effectively tying, running at 4:07. Look, it's a thankless job to do the seating and set up that invite. But why was Melissa Riggins not in that top section?
Yeah,
she's a 4:29 fourth place All-American miler who, by the way, was the top collegian in the second section last year at Brian Clay. I'm like, I don't know what she has to do to get into the top section here. So I never understood some of the seating in that case. I mean, granted, everyone's going to complain about something. You know, no one's ever going to be happy perfectly. So again, it's a thankless job. I wouldn't want it, but I never understood that. So shout out to Riggins and shout out to Foerster. Great runs.
Yeah, great runs. Do we feel a little bit better about Foerster now that she's kind of put together multiple performances like this?
We feel like this much better.
Okay. Because I mean, this doesn't change how I feel about Riggins in any way. I thought she was very capable of this. She's proven to be one of the best 1500 meter runners in the country. Again, why we're surprised that she wasn't in the invite section. Margot Appleton, Bill Jibkuri, Gracie Hyde, 4:08, Maddie Elmore, 4:09. For Gracie Hyde, and we'll talk about her again later, really, really awesome performance. She's taken a huge step up. But for these other women, about what you would expect, I think we were saying Maddie Elmore was going to run 4:05, 4:06. So we really had some high expectations for her.
I think I guessed her at 4:04 in the predictions, which was bad. It's a tough, dude. We had such a good stretch of like predictions.
Yeah.
This weekend, it was a big middle finger to me. It was tough. So.
But yeah, it was just like these were good results. There was nothing great. There was no other thing eye popping. We like we just keep saying. I don't think we really changed our opinions on very many people based off of any of these performances.
No, I do want to talk about Gracie Hyde, but we will do that in a little bit later in the podcast here. So, want to go to the women's 5K. Hilda Olemomoi, 15:06 for the 5K. That is the NCAA number 2 all-time outdoor 5K because Parker Valby has run faster indoors. In fact, I had to go do some of the reconciliation to see between seasons what that rank would be.
Sure.
But 15:06, outstanding. She wins by 5 seconds. Really clutch win. And then, shockingly, Solana Yildiz runs 15:15 despite being a miler. She's transferred from South Carolina to Oregon. And then Bailey Hertenstein. Ben, what do you think I'm going to say here?
Run the 5K.
Always run the 5K. I've been saying this for like 3 years. Run the 5K, and look what happens. Like it's, I'm excited for her because like she is so talented, and 15:18 all of a sudden now it's like, oh, well, this changes the complexion of things. And so, yeah, I'm excited for Hertenstein because that was the performance that I think we were waiting for.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, this is kind of like what we thought she could do based off of like a lot of her cross country performances. We've seen her run good 5K times. Like, we haven't seen her run great, I feel like, as of late, but like this is always something that we thought she was capable of doing, and for her to actually go out and do it is super impressive. For Hilda, is like, this makes me like really excited about her range and also her cross country ability. It's just like, to be able to do that, and that's what Oregon needs, is they need a lot of their 1500 meter women to kind of step it up a little bit in terms of the distance and prove that they're not just middle distance runners, that they can run the 5K, that they can run well on the grass. And this is a huge step for Hilda's. And I mean, quite frankly, I think she should stick in the 5K this outdoor season. They got plenty of women in the 1500. Have her stick in the 5K. Like, the way that she is able to finish races, her 1500 meter speed, I think is going to be a huge asset when it comes to going through rounds at regionals. And when she gets down to nationals, I think she may have found a home in terms of an event that she may not have expected to be at.
Does she do the double? 15 prelims, 15 finals, 5K finals.
Yeah, I just say do the 5K.
Do the 5K?
Yeah.
Okay, next question. She just ran 15-15. She's a good cross-country runner. I think she was 7th at SECs this past fall, 11th at Southeast Conference, or Southeast Regionals, excuse me. Yeah. Off the top of your head, you don't know the orders yet. We have no idea. We haven't even chatted about this. Where would you just place her within the top 50 individuals of our summer rankings?
I mean, I would probably have her in like the 45-50 range. Like, I think this performance says that she is a top 50 runner, but I need to see a little bit more on the grass to be able to be like, hey, like you truly are more than that. Because we see a lot of men and women come out during the spring season, run these great PRs, but then just not really follow it up with performances during the fall season that match those. And some people are just better track runners than cross country and vice versa. But even if she's not as good as this 15-15 shows, she still should be in the top 50.
All right. Well, I'll talk to Finn and Mara about that. I would have said 40, give or take a spot, but I'm not against what you said. So, all right. Great runs. Olemomoi, I want to talk about this performance.
Yeah, it's awesome. But
awesome. I mean, and I feel so bad, but like, this is kind of it. I said she was going to PR. I didn't think it'd be by this much. Here's a fun question. If Valby just goes out, like jogs a 15:30, right? And just tries to get a qualifier. And let's say she doesn't really ever run faster than 15:06. Well, Hilda Olemomoi now has 3 seconds to make up over 2 years, in the next 2 years, to catch Caitlin Tuohy's 15:03 outdoor track record.
Oh, wow.
Does she get it?
I think so. Yeah,
I think she would get it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lemon Goal will get it. Like,
that's true. Yeah, I
think she could break it and not ever be the collegiate record holder.
Well, that's true. Lemon Goal 15:04 ran it indoors, so like, she could exactly this season. Like, all right. Anyways, all right, we'll move on. Speaking of the 5K, Brian Musau, and what I would think, people may disagree with me here. I think this is an upset. Defeats Habtom Samuel. Each runs 13:13. You're going to say, well, yes, on paper, Garrett, but like, I think they're actually pretty like comparable in terms of their raw talent. And then I'm going to say, okay, Ben, but this guy ran 13:54 for the 5K, and he didn't have much of a resume, but Habtom did. I mean, what else do you want to talk about now? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think they're how close they were in cross country and like how Musau was during the indoor season. I think you had a little bit more of a track record now over the last few months to say that Musau, maybe not as top end talented as Samuel, wasn't that far off. And it's not like they ran some crazy fast time. I mean, 13:13 is very quick, but it's not like they were running 13:05. And
Right.
I think if that was what like ended up being the winning time, I think I would have bet on Samuel significantly. But a 13:13 ish performance, the wheels that Musau has, I'm not stunned to see him. I mean, and he just barely beat him, so it's not as if like he ran away from him.
No,
Wouldn't have been stunned to see him edge Samuel in this kind of race.
I have nothing else to talk about that one.
Yep, I am good there as well. Let's go to the men's steeplechase, where we saw EKU's Abdelhakim Abouzouhir win over Victor Kibiego in 8:25.
Well, just to clarify, he was the top collegian.
Or top collegiate. You're yep, absolutely right. And it's pretty good field, and professionally as well.
Yeah.
Another big result for Abouzouhir. Again, proves that he is a legit title favorite or like contender. You could consider him, I think, a favorite if you wanted to. Kibiego, though, this is the bigger performance after a poor steeplechase to start the year. He comes out, runs 8:25, is going neck and neck for the top collegiate position, and looks like he's back where we expected him to be coming into this season, and looks like he will challenge for the title once again.
I never understand steeplechasers. What like
I had no concern. I was so zen about him, and I think that was absolutely right.
I never understand these guys who are like, let's just be honest, not factors. They're not factors whatsoever. And, they have good performance here or there, but it's not anything that's like nationally competitive. But then Abouzouhir runs 8:25, Kibiego runs 8:25, McManus runs 8:29. Like, I mean, Levi Taylor, his teammate, ran 8:30. Like, I'm trying to figure out, like, what is it about putting a barrier in front of you and a water pit in front of you that somehow makes your times relatively more impressive? I don't understand that. So I'm very impressed. Congrats to them. I think what you said to begin was important. Abouzouhir, if you wanted to consider him the favorite for the steeplechase national title, you could. I think he's a title contender. I think Victor Kibiego's a national title contender. The split begins to get interesting when you introduce Rob McManus, who has run very well in his last two races, as Abouzouhir has. What are your thoughts on him right now?
Yeah, I think you could probably put him in this group because I just don't feel like anybody's pulling away at this point. The closest person to doing that is Abouzouhir, and it just doesn't. I don't know. He doesn't have that kind of command over the event that we've seen in years past when it's been like Duncan Hamilton or Kenneth Rooks or I mean those kind of guys. It just seems like everybody's pretty tightly congested. So I think you could put McManus in that group as well.
I'm just realizing this. This is insane. One collegiate, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 collegiates went under 840.
Yeah, it's like the fact that like guys are running this fast this early in the season is pretty frightening because that means we're probably going to see an 8:15 at the end of the year, which these are not guys that we really expected to be capable of doing that.
I don't think they're running 8:15. I think they're running like if they crack 8:20, 8:18.
They're going to break 8:20. They're running 8:25 right now.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. I think they crack 8:20. Maybe they get down to 8:18, something like that. I don't see them getting to 8:15. I mean, Kenneth Rooks was just at such a different level. I don't.
Yeah.
You think these guys are as good as Kenneth Rooks?
No, I don't. But like, they're running faster than he did. Like at this time, like right? I mean,
do we think that's a good thing?
That's fair. That's a valid point.
I'm not saying it's. I'm also not saying it's a bad thing, but I don't know if I'm ready to say it's a good thing. You know,
I mean, that's just the way we traditionally see steeplechasers progress through the season. So
that's true. Yeah, I do think if anyone's going to do it, Kibiego would probably be the guy to do it. And thankfully, this was the first result from him that we were like, Okay, awesome. Really quick, just want to shout out a few other guys. CJ Singleton, 833 of Notre Dame, finally had the performance that I think we were all kind of waiting for, but we didn't know what event it was going to be in. It's a steeplechase. And then Gabel Sapierda, 834, well-deserved result for him. And then a few other guys, 836, Max Worley, 836 of Utah State, and then Victor Shisama, 836.
Yep, fair enough. Great performances from those guys. Let's move on to the women's steeplechase. We saw Lexi Halliday Lowry was the top collegiate. She was running unattached though, 9:26, the BYU runner. We also saw Gracie Hyde and Elise Thorner run 9:28, and this is now, I think, the appropriate place to gush about the improvements we're seeing from Gracie Hyde.
So here's for everyone who doesn't know, Gracie Hyde is a D2 runner from Adams State who has been putting together what is now becoming inarguably the single best year from a D2 distance runner ever. She didn't race in cross country because I don't think she had eligibility. Raced indoors, got the triple crown of DMR, 3K mile, just ran 2 collegiate records, 408 in the 15, 926 and 928 in the steeplechase, demolishes the old D2 steeplechase record of 940. She was formerly an Arkansas runner who actually made it to the national meet, and I want to say was actually like a back-end All-American.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, she was pretty solid, but even then, she has not been to this level. Here's what she's done this season. She's run 858 in the 3K, first D2 women to go sub-9 in the 3K. She's run 430.9, which is the fastest all conditions mark. She ran that on the 300-meter track. Again, won 3 national titles. Ran 205 for 800 meters at New Mexico, which converted to 204. And then this past weekend ran 408, 928. Ben, in our top 25 rankings, where would you rank her?
Whew. So, I mean, she would be considered like top 3 or 4 in the country in the steeplechase on the D1 side.
Maybe
throw in, throw in everybody else or like all her other runs. I would say like 18th.
Oh no, I just put her at 9th. Like
9th, really?
The value you're getting out of her resume is incredible. You go find me a D1 runner who's going to run converted 204 all the way up to, 408, 430, 858, and then is like a top tier D1 steeplechaser as well.
Well, I mean, I think you could find a lot of people before you add on the steeplechase point.
Steeplechase is the whole point then.
That's my point. Like, sure, she's providing you a lot of value in those other races, but she wouldn't even be All-American in any of those other races.
You don't think she'd be an All-American in the 15 at 408?
I mean, there's a lot of women who just ran 408. I don't think she would. I don't think so necessarily.
I'm not saying that it'd be like a log by any means, but to say that she wouldn't be an All-American in the D1 level with 408 is
I said she could be, but I don't think like.
Do you know how many people ran 408 last spring? Prior to the regional championships?
How many people ran 408 this week or faster? Like 5, right? 6?
It was like 6. But that's what I'm saying. So if she's already going to be part of that group, who we all think are, and we know are all Americans, I don't think the value you're getting out of her resume is far.
Yeah, I hear you. I think you could talk me into like 12th. I think top 10 might be a bridge too far for me.
Well, you're wrong. Okay.
So I mean, to fill out the rest of the steeplechase point. So obviously, Holiday Lowry not going to be competing this year. Take her out of the mix. Elise Thorner running well. I think she's certainly a top 3 contender. Mm-hmm. I think the most interesting result out of all this is Greta Karinauskaitė running 9:37. She would have been, I think, the biggest challenger to the title. Just because she's shown she at her best she can compete and nearly won an NCAA title last year. it just doesn't seem like she's been quite at that same level over the past 6 or so months. Do we still consider her like a title contender, or is she like out of that mix now?
No, I think she is. And I think it's, when we say I haven't seen her at 6 months, well, they don't run indoor track at CBA.
Right.
Now, to your defense, she does run an 8K and like an RCC Invitational at March 1st. I don't understand that. I think the CBU one, we're just trying that. But the thing that really does make you go, oh, what's going on here is that 16:11 5K mark she had at the Stanford Invite at the end of March. But I kind of look at this and I go, okay, no, it's 9:37, because we forget last spring, no one was running that fast.
Yeah.
Like 9:37 would have been considered like a very good time last spring. So considering how well Karinauskaitė ran at the end of last spring, considering that, let's not forget, she probably wants to represent Lithuania at the Olympic stage and is trying to peak more so for that. I still like the 9:37 mark. I think it's actually an improvement and a more encouraging spot from what we saw from her 5K at Stanford. And I think she'll peak later in the season. I'll keep her as a title contender. You like to argue with me today, don't you?
I'm like split. You make a lot of good points. I don't know. I'm 50-50. I think she could. I think Thorner may have overtaken her as like the biggest challenger.
I'm not ready to say that after one race.
Yeah, that's
because Abouzouhir has run 2 races, and he's like, at least there's a precedent for that. There's one race we've had in the steeple.
Yeah, absolutely, fair enough. Anything else on the steeplechase before we move on?
Nope. That's it.
Let's go to the men's 10K, where we saw Alex Phillip run a huge PR, running 27:51, taking down Ernest Chariot of Texas Tech, right? In 27:52. Alex Phillip has just been like so much better than I think any of us, like maybe it's just me, expected him to be coming over from the D3 ranks. He has turned into just an absolute stud across the board. He's been so productive in almost every season for North Carolina. And this, though, I mean, feels like he's gone up even another level.
So I'm still writing it. So we're recording this Monday, April 15th, and I'm writing part 2 before we got on here of our Brian Clay invite. And when I was talking about Alex Phillip, I was so impressed with his poise and composure. Chariot kind of got away from them for like 15, 20 meters for a good portion of the race, but Phillip didn't overreact. He chipped away. He tried to pass him, tried to really kind of make a convincing move. Chariot resiliently, hung on, but I think Phillip just overall looked so, so great. And I think the biggest point that I made in that is, I think the question coming into this weekend for Phillip was, could you be an All-American? Could you be? Now, after this weekend, I think we can say, okay, he can be an All-American. I'm not going to say he is or he will be, but he can be. And I think that's a very important distinction, because I don't think we really had enough to quite make that decision.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, and he certainly has shown that he has the talent and the ability now. If he can put it all together on the right day against the best in the country, that's something that it's hard for you to know if you can do that until you actually go through it at NCAAs. So we're probably not going to learn too much more in terms of whether or not he'll be able to do that. But he's done. I mean, this race is all you could ask for in terms of promising signs of being an All-American.
Yep, I agree. Go ahead. I'll let you take it.
I just wanted to mention Alex Mayer, Aaron Los Harris. Good, solid races for them. A little bit further back, maybe expected them to challenge a little bit more, but they got
Ponsa from West Texas A&M, 28 flat, huge D2 time.
Yep, absolutely. And then let's go to the 800s, and let's just briefly mention Michaela Rose, 158. We're
going to briefly mention it.
Like, The fact that is not leading this podcast is pretty insane, but it's not shocking. She's just so that good, and I mean, it had to be kind of cathartic for her to just demolish Juliet Whittaker. Juliet Whittaker was in the other heat, sorry. Yeah. But like just to be able to really prove there is a gap after NCAAs.
Yeah, no, I'm sure there was probably a little bit of that was probably, like you said, I think cathartic is the great word for it. Percentage, the coming into this weekend, what percent chance did you give Rose about the potential to beat Athing Mu's record of 157.7? And then after, what is that percentage?
I think I had her at like a 20%. Like it was possible. I didn't think it was likely. Now, I think maybe like, I think it's like a kind of a coin flip. Like, I mean, you think about, and she's running like in like warmer weather against better competition, like for a title, that might be what ends up pushing her over the edge and running like sub 158. So I still would kind of, if I had to guess, I would bet against it, but I think it's like a pretty real possibility at this point.
I would have said 40%, so I'm not like completely off. But yeah, I think it's realistic. I think it would still be more surprising than not, but also not shocking, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Moving on. I mean, the rest of the women here ran 201. Whittaker, Gavadite, very chalk. Wes Ferguson was the top collegian in the men's 800 meters. I have so many questions for you about
a lot.
Yeah, which is wild. So it was him and Sean Dolan as the only attached collegians in the top heat. Richard Manuel was the other collegian, but he was unattached. Did you? I don't know if you saw this race. This was like
I didn't. Yeah. I didn't get this one.
Okay, so this one, they go through in 50 seconds through the first 400, but Wes Ferguson is at the back, and he doesn't look great at all. In fact, they keep following the leaders. Wes Ferguson's not even remotely in frame. They have a drone who's doing the down shot there, and they're turning the curve. You don't see Wes Ferguson until the final 100 meters when his head pops out on the side as he's charging down the final straightaway. He went from like last to second over that final, 200 meters, I think. The kick was incredible. He runs 145, D2 superstar in Nebraska Kearney. Here's my question for you. Is Wes Ferguson, who, by the way, made it to the semifinals of the USA Outdoor Championships last year and would have made it to the finals if he wasn't DQ'd for whatever reason that was.
Yeah, so weird.
Is he the single best 800-meter runner in the NCAA regardless of division?
I remember us having this same conversation about El Buchavi, and then he joined the T1 ranks. Has not quite been the same. No, I'd still give Busy Mana that.
I don't know, man.
It's close though. I think just because, like you said, I think Busy Mana could front run this kind of time and win it. I don't know if Ferguson can, and I think that lack of like versatility, if that's the right word, maybe is the only thing that shifts my like preference towards Busy Mana.
Yeah, he certainly doesn't like to lead or front run if he doesn't have to.
It's tight though. It's tight. Ferguson's looking great right now, and Busy Mana doesn't look his best. So
right, would you be upset with me if I said that I like Ferguson more?
No. I think it's like 45-55 either direction. So
I don't want to be like overreactive and like have recency bias creep in, but that race was so good. And this is now the second or third time that he's run 145. I think second time he's run 145. And by the way, he's D2 again for everyone. Do you know who the next best collegiate in that field was? Richard Manuel, who's running unattached. He runs for CSU Pueblo. He's run 145. He ran 146.98. He was the only other collegian, including Ferguson, to run under 147 this past weekend. At least at Brian Clay. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's the quality in different events in the D2 and even D3 level is becoming
It's
quite
impressive.
staggering. Like and
It's
I mean,
really
we were just
impressive.
talking about Alex Phillip. Like he made that transition rather seamlessly. It didn't
Mhm.
look like he was really going up that big of a level.
Well, he was D3, but I get what you're saying.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like he went from
Yeah,
D3 like all the way up to
right.
D1 and like made it look fairly comfortable. And like, I mean, someone like Ferguson who's D2 level and running these kind of times, him moving up he'd be right there neck and neck for title favorite.
Yeah, he's impressive. He's really good. All right, well that's it. I think we got through this shockingly quick. I thought it was going to
Yeah.
be longer.
Well, I think when I mean, obviously all these were very impressive times, but none like there was very few where it's like, whoa, that guy came out of completely nowhere,
Right,
and like,
right,
man, this really we gotta completely change our rankings. Like this, like
right.
we gotta think about this like race and this event completely differently. I mean, really, the only one that was kind of like that was Sahlman, but we kind of saw the signs like leading up to that. So
Well, I don't think we saw him going.
well, I guess I like in terms of like we saw some flashes. I don't think we obviously expected 333, but like we knew
Right,
he could be a factor in
right.
this event. So like
Yeah,
that's I think that was the most surprising result. But there really weren't a ton that just made you really shocked.
agreed, agreed. All right. That's it. I'm going to wrap it there. And for everyone listening, thank you for those who have left a 5-star rating on review in Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you could do us a favor, if you haven't already, go to Spotify, show page. You'll see the stars, 5 stars. Thank you. Apple, go to the show page, scroll all the way down. You'll see the 5-star ratings and reviews, comment, star. That'd be great. And YouTube, we are on YouTube. We're going to have some great interviews on that. Recently, I think Grace Hartman might be the next Beyond the Stride guest. So we're going to try to get her on there as well. Beyond the Stride, we're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify there, again, YouTube, and of course the site. So that is all I've got.
All right. Well, until next week, Garrett, I'll talk to you.
I'll talk to you.